Hey guys, it's Sarah, and I just want to come here with another devotion. Today I'm going to be talking about God's timing. This is such a huge thing and something that I know everyone kind of struggles with. Because when it comes to God's timing, you also have to trust in God's timing. You have to trust Him. And this is a hard thing to do, especially with the world that we live in nowadays. The American dream, this idea of I need to graduate high school, go to college, get married, have kids, buy a house, and that's not always the case when it comes to God's timing. You can have hopes, dreams, goals, and and someone said to me, and I love this, they said you can plan, but God establishes them. And that's so profound because it's like you can say, I'm going to do this and I want to do this. This is my dream. This is my goal. But if it's not in God's will, it ain't going to happen, honey. So that's something that I had to come to terms with, especially in high school. I had my life planned out to a T. And God has showed me firsthand that it is not going to be that way. And I'm trusting even now. Sometimes I'm like, Lord, you know me, you know the things I want. But I trust to believe that God has something better for me. That even though He's not giving it to me right now, that He has something better for me. And there's a couple of stories in the Bible that I want to talk about. Well, a story and a verse, and a couple verses. So David wrote in Psalms 31:14, "But as for me, I trust in you, O Lord. I say, you are my God. My times are in your hand." So I love how in the midst, and if you look at the verse, I always believe in context. So make sure you always look at the context. But David talks about his enemies, and he's talking about this, hard time, this sorrow. But then in the middle of it, he talks about how, oh Lord, I trust you. Oh Lord, my time is in your hands. That's such a beautiful thing. Just, in the chaos, in the midst of the chaos, you're trusting God. Also, in Psalms, again, 62:8, it says, "Trust in Him at all times, my people. Pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for us, Selah." So I love how he says all times. Because when things don't go our way, or when, you're praying to God and that prayer doesn't come true, or it doesn't go the way you wanted it to, it is hard to trust. And to trust at all times means letting go and not having control over it. And nowadays, a lot of people, we all struggle with when we have no control over something. That's a hard thing. So being like, okay, God, I trust you in all times. In times that it didn't go my way, in times that my dreams didn't come true, in times that I got fired from my job, in times that, people left my life. There's a reason for all this. And this is another beautiful thing that ties into these verses, is God tells us that He knows the plans that He has for us. So you have your plans for you, but God has His plans for you. And so it is important to trust in Him because His plans are better than what you can imagine. He created the wind, the waves, created the earth, created just every cell in your being, knows the hairs on your head, knows the stars by name. He just knows every animal, every creature, just everything He's created. He has that much power, that much authority. And just imagine the plans He has for you. The fact He cares that much for you, and the fact that you've seen Him, seen His work, seen the sunset, seen the stars, seen the sky, seen just how things, just the mysteries of the world, and to think that He cares enough for you to have amazing plans for you, that's so profound. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. So that's a big thing. God doesn't want to harm you. And in this season of going through the wind, the waves, walking on that water like Peter did, and he starts to sink because Peter realized the storm around him, and Jesus is like, focus on me. That's a hard thing to do. But this is what God is asking out of us, to trust in Him, to focus just on Him, not what's around us, and to know that there is a testimony out of it. So God doesn't want to harm us. That's a huge thing. And that we can harm ourselves when we try to put our plans together. It's our will, our way, and when we try to dabble in it, when we try to correct it, when we put our hands on it, it will fail, it will fall. Let me tell you firsthand, honey, it will not go the way you expected it to. Okay? Because God is such a solid foundation, such a rock, such a profound being, that if you just look at the Bible and look at how he made a way out for the Israelites, he parted the Red Sea and he closed it on their enemies. You know how closing the mouths of the lions for Daniel, and just how even Jonah in the whale, how Jonah's in that pit, in that whale's, large fish, stomach, and yet Jonah's sitting there like, really? But yet God makes a way out of it, and it's a testimony. It's such an amazing testimony. So another thing when it comes to having our plans, it can get you into some sticky situations. And this kind of makes me think about Abraham and how God promised Abraham that he was his legacy, he's going to have generations, people are going to come through him, right? How there's just so much in Genesis that God tells Abraham about, future generations and how they're going to come through him pretty much. And what does Abraham do? Sarah hasn't had a kid yet, so Abraham gets with Sarah's servant and has a baby. This creates chaos between Abraham and Sarah, because Abraham put it upon himself to take control of the situation. So, I find that we struggle more than we need to because we don't trust God. And God wants consistency out of us. God wants to see how devoted are we to him. In this time where it seems like you can't swim and you're just, fighting for dear life, he's like, trust me. And, sometimes it does seem like the waves are above your head, but other times, he's going to lift you up and it's going to be calm. So just trusting that those calm times will come and that there's a reason for this. Another thing, it tells us in Proverbs 3:5-6, lean not on your own understandings. That goes along with it too. So you have God's and all his all-knowing mind, and then you have you. So lean not on your own understandings. Don't take control of your own situation. So when talking about God's timing and trusting in God, and during this time, 1 Peter 5:6 says, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand. This goes back to how powerful and mighty God is, that he may lift you up in due time. And growing up, I always heard these two phrases, or two quotes, whatever you want to call them. One, God is never late. God is never early. He's always right on time. Okay? And the other one is, God will give you exactly what you wanted to show you that's not what you needed. So let those sink in. And something else I want to touch on, referring to quotes, is on Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I love my Pinterest quotes. And there is this quote, and it says, sometimes it isn't about the answer to the prayer. It's more about what you learn while you're waiting. So in those times when those waves are above your head, you might learn how to swim. In those times where you're asking God, why my hopes and dreams that I have, how come they're not coming true? You learn more about yourself. You have a deeper relationship with God because you're leaning and trusting on him. So it is, while you're waiting, you learn a lot. Also, I love Matthew 6. Matthew 6 is my favorite chapter in the Bible. And it talks about how, God tends and cares for the birds, how how the fields don't have to worry about clothes, how the birds, don't have to worry about what they're going to eat. And it's like, if he cares so much about all those little things, if the fields are clothed with grass, if the birds, are warm in barns and can eat, how much more does he care about us? He created you for a reason. He loves you. He has that agape love for us. So it's like, if he can do that for the smallest of things, imagine what he has in store for you. And I want to leave you with that. I appreciate you listening to this. Hopefully you got something out of it. I know it was kind of a lot of verses thrown at you, but I hope you take away with something. And just, when you find yourself trying to take control of the situation, trust in God. Just say, God, I trust you. God, I know you have better for me. Or God, all in your timing. And remember that God has perfect time. You know, he shows up right on time. He is never late, never early. And believe that. You know, believe that what you're going through right now, you know, God wants you to give that up because he has something better. And that's a whole other thing, laying something at God's feet. Sometimes he just wants to see your obedience, to lay it at his feet and him supply you with something better because he knows what you deserve. And to have a God who knows all your wrongdoings and still loves you and wants the best for you, oh, that's amazing. So I hope you have a great week, and I hope you took something out of this. Thank you. Bye.